We are going to go to John, who's calling us from Falls Church, Virginia, listens on WAVA. Hello, John. How are you? And thanks for calling.
I'm fine. Thank you very much. I'm calling because I have some internal anger issues that I want to deal with. It has to do with betrayal trauma.
Okay.
And just to make it really quick, I'm a highly codependent person, and it turns out that as a highly codependent person, if I was a key, I went to the lock that I was looking to open up was I'm in a narcissistic relationship with a woman for 46 years. In the last 5 or 6 years, things have come to light that are very kind of disturbing. One, it turns out that the day that we got married, she told her sister that we had an open marriage. And then I found out 2 years ago, she told me completely out of the blue that she was addicted to stranger sex. She only can have feelings, I guess, when the person she's physically involved with has no connection to her, and she finds that any connection with me is extremely distasteful to her. The other thing has been is that over the course of our married life, she has regularly told me that if she wasn't interested in a physical relationship with me, that I should find other women to have physical relationships with. And then the worst piece of it all is, in some ways, I've come to have to figure out, I have 2 grown sons, and I actually don't know for sure whether either one of them is actually mine.
Gosh, John, that's a lot. That is a lot. Well,
yes. Oh, and I was sexually abused by my father from ages 3 to 5, and I was raised in a household in which my father was taken to a slave labor camp during the Second World War, and he ran his entire household like it was a slave labor camp. So we were beaten, starved, you name it.
So you've had a lot of trauma, John, is throughout your whole entire life. I want to ask a question before we go to Jim and Alice. Have you received any counseling or help over your lifetime for any of the things that you've just talked about?
Yes, I've been in therapy probably 8, 9, or 10 times. The last couple of 3 times I've gone have been dealing with some of these deeper issues. It's been less successful. So part of the issue, people say, well, how can you put up with this long? It turns out that one of my coping mechanisms was to dissociate while all this childhood stuff was happening. And all the stuff that was happening in my marriage, I dealt with in the same way. I just kind of dissociated. The issue was 3 years ago, I ended up getting rear-ended. And the TBI I got did something very interesting. All of a sudden, I was incapable of dissociating anymore.
That's interesting.
So all these things that always felt weird. So anyways.
I was just going to say, John, what is the best way that we can help you today? It sounds like you are really aware and insightful in the struggles that you've experienced, but we want to help you. And what is the best way that we can help you today?
Well, so one of the issues that I have is that it's really disconcerting to sometimes end up feeling completely enraged by what's going on, realizing, of course, that I actually played a part in it. You know, if I would have picked up on the 5,000 red flags in the first 3 weeks of being with this woman, I would have solved all my problems. But now I'm stuck with facing her stupidity and mine, and it's a really highly unpleasant situation to be in.
You can hear the music, John. We'll come back to your question after the break. You know, we have talked many times on the show about regret. And I think sometimes we can feel regret even when we've been victimized, even though that's not, the right place for it, but it's just part of that experience. And that's what I hear, as you look back over your lifetime with your wife. But it's amazing what happened in the car accident. And I just, there's lots of facets that we're talking about, but when we get back, Alice and Jim, I know that you can help him, and we'll look forward to hearing from from both of you in maybe some next steps that John can take so that the future will be better. And we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. We were just talking with John, who's had a history of so much pain and disruption. But Ellis and Jim, what would you like to offer John so that he can get moving in the right direction?
Well, I know he's off the air, but my question would have been to him, why did you stay so long? There's something about that. I mean, there's part of that, when we stay in a incredibly dysfunctional relationship, there's a reason. And I'd like to know, part of what that is. I would say to him a couple things, Becky. I would say one is he may still even be thinking he lived in a really dysfunctional home, and it's whenever somebody is sexually abused, it's not their fault. It's the fault of the abuser. And if he's taken on any of that stuff, he's got to be freed from that because and he's got to be able to, find hope and healing and health through that process. But I would simply say this relationship is really toxic. And so what's caused a lot of his trauma is, a very toxic relationship. And I would be talking to these therapists that he's, dealing with. I'd be talking to them and asking them, what would it look like if I separated? Would that give him some freedom? He definitely has biblical grounds for that. And then, the only other question I would bring up, and I'm interested to see what Alice thinks, but, the other, if he wanted to, I mean, it's pretty easy today to, go to, ancestry.com or whatever the other ones are and find out if that's of need. He may not want to find out if those are his sons, but they are his sons. They call him dad, and he loves them. Right. And that's not going to change. I was telling Alice, our daughter, our oldest is adopted, and so she's not a part of our DNA, but hey, I'm her dad and she's my daughter. And,
that's right.
It doesn't change anything. So I don't know how he would feel about that, but those would be some practical ways. But honestly, I would walk through with a counselor, what would it look like if we, separated?
Right.
And because again, he is in a toxic relationship. Maybe he gets the award for the most toxic relationship we've talked about today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Alice, how about you?
John, if you don't address your rage, it will leak out or explode somewhere. And it might make you physically sick. I'm sure you've already feeling emotional sickness, but it might come out in violence or aggression somewhere, somehow. And that rage is a righteous anger. It makes me think of Jesus in the temple when he went in and he turned over those tables and he threw the money on the ground because he said, "Not in my Father's house." And we have to do that sometimes for our spiritual house and our literal house of this does not work for me in my home. And that's taking a stand against the toxicity and the sin that your wife is bringing into your marriage and into your household. But I understand that as a codependent, it can feel impossible to consider that you are a person apart from your wife. And so you may have to work on first building up an identity apart from your wife so that you can even consider taking such a strong stand because it might mean losing her. But if you don't address that rage, it will cause you so many more problems, and it probably already is.
Well, we are so glad that you called, John. And if you hold on, we can connect you with a counselor because sometimes we need to do new counseling.
Yeah.
It's not that the old counselor was bad. It's just a new day, new awareness. We're going to send you a copy of the Life Recovery Bible as well. And it is a recovery process.